Hello, I'm Luke Miller, and welcome to the VGDC at UCI Fall 2019 Week 9 workshop. This is the 3 T's of design, which, if you've never heard of this before, it's because I think I just came up with it. So, take it with a grain of salt. Patent pending. Today we're gonna mostly look at a short little clip from the game The Messenger, which is a fun little game that was free last week on Epic Game Store. And I was going to send out a message, hey everyone, it's free, come look at it. But then I forgot. But the 3 T's that I'm talking about is, I'm gonna start, first one, train. This is where you just show, in this one, I'm talking about in progress of like mechanics. So you just show your player a mechanic that they can interact with and put them in a fairly safe environment and allow them to interact with this mechanic several times and let them get comfortable with the mechanic. A safe environment is not necessarily a safe environment. It's just an environment that, compared to like their normal level of gameplay, is safer. So once you're like further along in the game, a safe environment might have like 5 things going on in it because you've just gotten comfortable with these 5 things happening all the time in the game. And I got an example of the very first Mario level, not including that Donkey Kong one, where Mario learns how to jump and whatnot, which everyone's like, that's a training one. So this trains you how to jump, it trains you how to hit blocks, it trains you how to get mushrooms, trains you how to do several things in one spot. Most of the time you're going to probably assume that players know how to jump, players know how to do a lot of things, but you still need to train them how to interact with the mechanics of this world. In terms of Messenger, which I don't have an image to show you because it's hard to find, your player can, when they hit something in air, gains the ability to jump again. And so in the very first level, before like the game actually even really starts, they give you a bunch of lamp posts, which technically you can hit, and says, hey, if you hit these and jump, you can jump in the air. And so it gives you training in a very easy environment where even if you fall, you just go down to the ground, and then you walk back a couple feet and jump and do it again. And that quickly takes you from just one of them to like 3 in a row to 4 in a row. And then later on, you'll be hitting like bullets that people shoot, and then jumping over another bullet, and then hitting the dude, and then jumping in the air, and you'll do all sorts of crazy stuff later on. And so it just gives you a slight realization that, hey, you can use this mechanic in the game. Here's a little bit of comfort with it. The next one is test, and this is where you put your player in a situation where they're not only given the mechanic, but they're putting a little bit more challenge in the mechanic. Maybe instead of attacking and then jumping over onto a cliff with the ground below you, you're attacking and jumping onto a cliff, but there's nothing below you. So if you fall and you die. Or there's spikes below you, so if you fall, you hit some spikes and you die. Tests can be in a lot of different forms, but as mentioned last week, if you went to Chase's workshop, it's the best situation, even when you're testing the player, to make sure they're not dealing with 100 different mechanics at once. Or at least if you're actually allowing them to deal with 100 different mechanics at once, these can be merged into like one big mechanic instead of looked at one minor mechanic. So it's like, you can think of it as one mechanic, then it's probably one mechanic, even if it's like 12 mechanics mixed into one. So just try to keep it to a thoughtful, or like 2 or 3 thoughtful mechanics. Just coming up with definitions left and right today. And what I'm showing you here in the image is a Mario 5.5 in Mario World 3, which has Mario. He's got his Tanuki mechanic going on, and then he's got falling platforms, and there's also a couple other things in the environment. So he's dealing like with multiple things at one time, but none of them are, all of them tend to work together and synergize. And last but not least, we've got throw for a loop, which is take the general idea of the mechanic or situation that you are in and remove a core part of it and allow the player to deal with this situation with a core part of the idea removed. So here I've got a couple pictures of Mario Maker levels, which are basically entire levels built around the idea of throwing your player for a loop, which puts in the cautionary tale of throw for a loop that if you can go way too far and you can take this way beyond anyone should go and then make the game not fun again. So throw for a loop, but it has to be connected reasonably to what you were dealing with previously. Any questions? That's a resounding no from the entire audience.
Go over everything that you just said again.
Okay, so 3 T's of design. We've got train, where you put the player in a safe environment and give them a mechanic and allow them to train in that mechanic. I'm going to do this. Test, where you take that mechanic or situation and put it in a spot where it's slightly more challenging, so the player has to worry about that situation that they were taught how to handle and maybe 1 or 2 other situations. And then throw for a loop, where you take that situation that you taught them how to handle and made it a little bit more challenging, and then you remove a core part of it and put in a different aspect. And so now it's kind of the same, but it works very differently. And, well, that's the end. So the example of this that I'm looking at today is specifically the 3rd boss in The Messenger. There's a link. The Messenger, a 2018 video game by Sabotage Studios. They are very, very much so trying to get the feel of, I can't remember the name of the game, the ninja one from the Nintendo games. Everyone knows that game. And this is the Emerald Golem boss. So as you enter the field, I'm just gonna full screen this. As you enter the field, you get a look at the Golem boss, and you see that he's big and evil, and you see his shoulder spikes, and you see, let's take a look at this real quick. You see a glowing thing in his chest. Since that's glowing and it looks kind of fragile, you're kind of hope the player can understand that they're supposed to hit that. But one thing I find very interesting about this boss, for lore reasons, this boss at the beginning will not attack you until you attack him. And so you can just press play. These guys won't do it. But if you don't attack it and stand right there, he will just go back and forth slamming his hands down, never interacting with you. So you have to initiate the combat. So it's a very, very safe state that you're in when you're seeing him, and you can see how his hands shake and then they drop. And so you get an understanding of how his crush mechanic works. And then you go in and start fighting him, and that thing launches out, so things start getting more complex. And then you hit him, and you get up and you hit the face. And so basically all you're doing in this thing is you're hitting the center chest piece a couple times, and then after you hit it a couple times, it reveals the open mouth, and then you hit the mouth a couple more times. And then that's how you fight this boss. And the spikes come up. So it gives you a fairly simple idea of what's going on. And so you get 1 or 2 attempts with the 1 or 2 times down here with the boss slamming it down and doing a combo attack. And then after you get it around usually the 2nd time, he enters his 2nd phase, which is a little bit more complex in where his fists are going to fall down and things start moving around faster. But even then, it's not that much more complex, and you kind of already have a general idea of how his fists work. So this would usually be about the test state. So most bosses have a very similar thing of like 2 or 3 states that they go in. And the first one is like, here's an idea of how the boss works. Here's the boss actually starting to try to challenge. And then this guy's actually really good and beats it really quick. And then we have throw for a loop stage of the fight. And if you notice, he was using that glide mechanic in order to get up to the boss's side because of the wind drafts. And you actually get the glider earlier in this level. And so it's one of the main purposes of this level is teaching the player how to glide and use wind drafts. And this, obviously, the wind draft mechanic is going to be a part of the boss. But then right here at the end, it's like, not only is it a part of the boss, it's the final stage of the boss. You have to continuously wind draft up. And so the floor gets removed, and you're now dealing with a floating guy and an upward draft, so you have to hit him a couple times. And this part right here is actually ridiculously hard if you don't have, so see the mechanic where he's grabbing the blue things and throwing stars at him? That is a ability that you can buy. So if you don't buy this ability, that makes this part of the boss really hard, because it's hard to hit him with your sword, falling and he's moving and other things. But the moment you get these throwing stars, this part becomes really easy, which is something that this game does a lot of requiring the player to buy certain items in the shop, and then making these things kind of necessary, but not telling you they're necessary. And so this is one of the major problems that I actually have with this game is the necessary items that you have to buy. But otherwise, I think that boss design is very well, and a lot of their other bosses are designed in a similar manner, though this one's the most passive at the beginning. Any questions? Well, then, I think that's basically my entire workshop. So, thank you. Have a good day.